Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the topic Navigating Leadership, Sustainability, and Gender Equality in Maritime. I'm Arjun and I'll be your host for today. I'm a part of the recruitment team for MLA College, and I'd just like to briefly introduce ourselves. MLA College is an autonomous higher educational institution based in the United Kingdom, and we specialize in distance education across maritime, sustainability, as well as a plethora of other domains. And all our degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, who happens to be a strategic partner. Today, we are honored to have a very special guest join us today, Captain Varun Rawat, who embodies the spirit of leadership and transformation in our industry. From beginning his maritime career as a deck cadet in 1991 to navigating icy Arctic waters as a chief officer on an ice-class ship to commanding the world's largest bulk carrier, and now as the director of Abu Dhabi Maritime Academy, Captain Rawat has redefined industry norms with over 3 decades of global experience. Welcome to the webinar, Captain Rawat.
Thank you very much, Arjun. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Likewise. Before we begin our conversation, I'd just like to intimate all the attendees that your views, your opinions, and your queries are extremely important to us because we want this to be a very engaged discussion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them at the top in the question box, and we'll be sure to go across them in our conversation today. So, Captain Rawat, it's a pleasure to have you with us. To start, could you please share with our audience what inspired you to pursue a career in the maritime field, and perhaps how you broke through some of the toughest barriers in the industry?
Right, Arjun. First of all, thank you very much again for you and MLA College to have me over here. And though I can't see the audiences, thank you very much for being over here. I know time is very important for everyone, so thank you very much for coming over here for the webinar and giving an opportunity for us to explain our careers and our pathway. So my interest actually, if you really, I'll be very honest with you, it generated because of my father. We were from a naval background, so my father was in the Navy, he was a commander over there, and then eventually he moved on to Mascon Docks to build ships. So we have always been around the ships area. I visited lots of submarines, a lot of naval vessels during my childhood. So people used to go to Australia and all to New York, and we would go to the submarine. So the different kind of childhood for our sake, and we were surrounded by neighbors who were also in the merchant navy. So we had two options, more traditionally and way of upbringing. So we had my father give me the option. Okay, this is NDA was one option, and the merchant navy was second option. And although I did give my exams in NDA, we chose to prefer to have a merchant navy. So that was the first insight for joining the merchant navy. So I was very young. In fact, I was 17 years of age when I first embarked myself as a deck career. I was quite lucky. I cleared my class 12 when I was 16 years old. So sort of academic career has always been fast forwarded in that fashion. And that was the first journey. So 17 years of age, 1991, I embarked over there. That's about it. And now it's about 34 years. We're sitting over here having a chat.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Rawat. It's quite illuminating to see how your background, played a key role in inciting your interest in the maritime domain and how it kind of became a motivating factor for you to join the service. So thank you so much for sharing that. Interestingly, in say today's rapidly evolving maritime landscape, you've not only commanded vessels, but you've also played a crucial role in ensuring regulatory compliance and safety management at sea. So based on this extensive experience, I'd love to ask you, what skills do you think set apart future-ready leaders?
So it's a very broad mix, if you ask me, Arjun. There's no fixed notion. It all depends upon what kind of industry you are in. If it's in maritime, then lots of things that you require to have. You have to have a technical know-how. You have to have a sense of risk management in your play. And again, depending upon your rank where you are serving on board your vessel, whether you're a chief engineer, you're a captain, you're a chief officer, you're an officer. So everything changes depending upon your work requirements, for that say. But one very important thing that you have to understand is the technical knowledge. So you have to have the technical knowledge, you have to have the operational excellence, you have to have the management skills because you're actually dealing with people. And one of the very good aspect of merchant navy, and I really love that part, is interacting with people on board. One of the olden terms that was given to a captain was old man. So we never used to discuss as a Captain Varun. It would always be an old man. Although I never looked as an old man, to be very frank, one of the very sad part of me being a captain over there, because generally we always think of captain to be white beard, like a Titanic captain, if you remember how it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, so we were more like a father figure on board the vessels, and how you manage a team. I won't say as a father. I mean, it becomes too personal and stuff like that. But somebody who's a caretaker. So you have to have the people's skill. You have to understand the dynamics of human dynamics, as we say, the group dynamics, as we talk about teamwork, and that comes very early age. So I was a third officer when I was just 19 years of age, and you are being entrusted of an asset of an owner, which is about $60 million, and you're probably carrying a cargo of about 100 200 million. So you need to understand the responsibility that is entrusted on you at a very young age, and unless until you understand the job role, what is required from your side, I don't think you will be able to do justice to that, and to be able to perform to your satisfaction to the job profile. You also have to know what is required. That means your knowledge has to be very solid. And Indians, I would say, are quite in that fashion, because right from beginning the academic rigor is quite strong in that fashion. Thanks to our education, it's been very strong. And same thing which happens in Singapore and Hong Kong and these kind of aspects, including UK. So with these kind of countries, it becomes much more easier. So yeah, I mean, I think that these are things that you is absolutely required for the future leaders. Now I would say they have to be sensitive to gender diversity, because shipping was traditionally a very male dominated industry, and there was a reason for that. I won't say that the women were not encouraged to join the merchant navy, because early time it was more of hard work. I remember, I mean, it's not a very long time. It was 34 years back. I remember a lot of hard work we used to do, but there were never used to be a shipping gun for that matters. We used to completely overhaul the heel block, which was absolutely about maybe about 200 kilo riding on our shoulders, which was a very physical, labor intensive industry earlier. However, with the advent of modernizations, a lot of things have actually become automation. Like our industries, like car, where they talk about any kind of automotive industries, or so. Now, at the moment, I don't think you need to have a male cadets on board the vessels, or an officer, or the captain. You have to understand that kind of nature, that you need to be gender sensitized. You might the people who have already been in an industry which is male dominated, it becomes very difficult for them to actually sail on board with female, because traditionally they've always been around male, and they still have the mindset. And I would completely agree. I mean, you would hear the views of the female cadets and officers, but they come on board the vessels and they are not treated very well, because traditionally the chief engineers and the captains are not very happy with having females on board. So I think it's very important for the leaders now who are coming on board, not becoming a captain, but at the moment becoming cadets at the moment right now, to understand that you are entering in the industry, which is going to be intensified with females coming on in the industry and playing a very major role, and they're already playing with staff for that matters. They're playing very major role in the industry. So that is also very important. Automation. I mean, you can't run away with technology. Technology is going with such a rapid pace that every day there's something new. Forget about chat GPTs, and other kind of AI, generative text models. But the technology is improving. I mean, some aspects we are going back to the olden time, like for example, sales. We are having sales on board, which we used to have earlier. But I think so. You need to understand that you have to have a technology bend in your mind set when you're joining an industry like the maritime. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Varun. A relevant fact that comes to mind when you talk about this is that, according to the World Maritime University, adaptability seems to be one of the core traits for any emerging leader, especially keeping abreast of contemporary cultural trends, digitization, and automation, which you touched upon. Of course, with regards to say the gendered aspect of maritime industry, we touch upon that subsequently. But as of now, we've understood about your interest in the maritime sphere. We've understood a bit about leadership credentials required in the contemporary era. But from your own experience, could you share, say, more of your highlights in your journey, say, key milestones that defined your journey and how they might have shaped your perspective on this adaptability as well as education in the domain?
Okay, so I can start off my life. I mean, I was absolutely horribly seasick. When I joined the shipping industry, and I cursed. I really cursed. Where have I landed? I mean, I used to throw up maybe about 35 times a day. So it was a journey which was actually filled with hardships. Eventually, not because I could not do mentally the hard work and everything, because my body would not cope up with that. So that was also a struggle for me to cope up with the seasickness and eventually triumph over there. Passing my second mate at a very early age, becoming an officer at the age of 19 was another milestone. But honestly, I will tell you, for the people who are there listening to me, probably there are a lot of students or already ex-captains. I mean, I wasn't a very education bent guy. I mean, I was always intelligent. I mean, I would consider myself intelligent from the point of view, that I could things come a little easier to me from that point of view and all. But I would never ever imagine myself, 34 years down the line, I would be at a position that I am, and creating curriculum, making programs, and delivering lectures and being a director for these kind of things and all. In fact, I did remember very funnily when I used to sit down for my second examination, which was almost like an undergraduate program. I used to be called a sleeping beauty because the moment the lecturers would start the topics, I would just go back to the sleep because I would find it so boring from that point of view. So I've been, and I have this kind of empathy towards the students now because I've always been that kind of students who were not very interested in the studies, but the lecturers was actually telling. So I do understand what is required from the lecturer's perspective and how you engage your students from that point of view. Um, then I was lucky enough to join ice class vessels. I mean, I did a lot of contracts in Great Lakes of US and Canada. We're carrying steel coils from Europe, coming all the way to the US Great Lakes and picking up grain from there. And it's a very weather intensive region because Canada can go minus 40 in winters. And North Atlantic is not something that you would like to be as a seafarer because it's always rough, in terms of that. So, and then afterwards, I became a second officer in the Arctic vessels. There are only about 4 or 5 Arctic vessels at that time who were applying, and I was one of them. So we're very proud about the fact that we went to almost about 78 degrees north, so almost in the North Pole area, carrying over there, and I did many trips over there. Then we eventually became a chief officer in one of those kind of vessels. And then I think so. The major part was commanding the world's largest bulk carriers towards the end of my career as a seafarer. So I've got 8 years of command experience, which is also quite a nice experience from that point of view. I was lucky enough to start teaching in the same college where I was actually doing my license examination back in the UK. So the same college was well loved what thesis that I gave it to them, and they gave me a proposal that if I could become a lecturer over there, and I became a lecturer in the same college. This is again, I'm talking about 18 years back, and and then now coming to the UAE, I was quite proud to sort of create program which was never there in the UAE. So in for the merchant navy, for the pattern, the nighttime education, I'm trying to blend in different programs and looking at the strands of the national education requirement, and then trying to blend in the requirements of IMO and WMU and all the kind of aspects into the programs over there to become more easier. So I've created about 5 programs, 3 bachelors, 2 masters. I've created diploma. I've created advanced diploma in maritime and shipping operations, and I've also made lots of different new short courses, consultancy projects. So these are the things which I think so, which you can say they are a pretty good milestone in my career. I've been dealing with the IMO from a very long years. I was quite lucky and proud that I created programs and model courses, which we call model courses. They're more like a textbook, which has been uh, followed by entire countries all across the world. So when we talk about licenses, like for example, how you become a pilot of airline pilot, you need to have a license to become a airline. Same kind of thing which we have on ourselves. So academic is different, the license is different. We can blend in together. uh, but the licenses has certain academic requirement, which has been updated every 10 to 15 years. And in 1995, we came with a new requirement. In 2010, we came with a new requirement. And I was the one who actually wrote down the new syllabus requirement in 2010 onwards, which actually came into force in 2013, 2014. So all across the world at the moment right now, whatever they are studying, in terms of licensing, whether it's Ukraine or it's Philippines or Singapore, it was written by me. So I was quite proud about that fact, that people are following that kind of thing. And I represent UAE for that matter and all. So these are the few milestones that I can actually recall and say that to you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Varun. That was extremely fascinating, and especially your, proactive approach in being involved in leadership roles in framing training programs, which is essentially honing the next generation of mariners. It's extremely inspiring to know about that. And in context of that, I am aware that you talked about, say, both the need for gender equality as well as the need to incorporate sustainability as key agendas within the maritime domain. Perhaps could you explain a bit more about why these issues matter so deeply in the maritime domain and how they personally have influenced your career?
Right. So, see, sustainability in maritime education has always been there. I mean, it's been there, maybe underlying factor, but nobody understood the meaning of a sustainability for that matters. I mean, if you actually talk about sustainability, first came in, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1987 report, which is a World Commission on Environment, and they coined the term as sustainability. But sustainability is something that you have to have the resources that what you're planning to do from that point of view. You just cannot be you have to be mindful of what kind of resources you're using. And as the day is progressing, you can see the climate effect, how kind of effect. So it's become a very integral part of not only businesses, but the entire community of shipping industry. And with the net zero coming in 2050, the kind of sustainability goal which is coming across. So I would say sustainability is like a principle of ensuring that our actions today do not limit the range of economic, social, and environmental options open to future generations. And that is very important to understand that we are going to leave the world for the future generations. So we have to be very mindful that whatever resources that we're actually using is not going to be harmful for the future generations from that point of view. And the same thing goes for the maritime industry. We are at the moment right now burning fossil fuels, which is again depending upon the carbon and sulfur and nitrogen oxide and all this kind of emission which has been producing. And we're going towards net zero. We're trying to have different alternative fuels of methanol, ammonia, LNG, all these aspects and all. So it has become a very integral part of our life. And I think so. When we sort of grow up and we think from the point of view of the parent point of view, it's very important to see that the world which our future kids or children's or the generations are going to have, it's going to be more better than what we have. So we have to be very mindful. So it's very core to my heart and the concept of sustainability and that content and gender equality. I find it. I think it is quite sad to see that the females workers in different industry have to actually fight to be in that place where they are just because of the sex. I don't think gender determines their capabilities or their competencies. I think so. Any job for that matters should be open to whoever is competent. And as I told you, in maritime industry, it used to be a male-dominated industry because of physical nature. But we talk about physical nature. I mean, there are so many jobs which is much more physical intensive. I mean, just being a housewife, just being a mother is so physical intensive. Or for the matters, giving birth to a child. I don't think men could even imagine the kind of pain the female are enduring. So when we talk about physical and we talk about, we men are more physically sort of, improvised version or evolved. I don't think it is right. I think the females have got much more capacity to endure physical pains and strength, and it's only the matter of perspective that people have that okay, men are more powerful than women. It is not only about muscles and biceps and triceps. I think so. It's what happens in the core strength and the physical nature. I think so. God has made females much more stronger. So I find it very strange when people decide about the jobs and the work depending upon your gender, and that is what something which I'm very vocal about that. And whether it's in LinkedIn posts, whether I'm a teacher, whether I've got faculties who are from female, and people would resist that. But I don't want. I would love to live into a world. I know it might sound very awkward, but then I would love to live into a world where the people are not been decided or the jobs are not been given depending on gender. You are competent irrespective of who you are. It doesn't make a difference. The job should be given to you. And if you have to fight for that at this day and age, that's very sad.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Varun. Especially, I think when you consider sustainability first, I think the shipping industry, according to statistics, is responsible for around 3% of global CO2 emissions, right? So, of course, the leaders being very aware of that, or working very proactively to incorporate that in, say, education and bringing that awareness to the next generation can be a crucial part in countering this prevalent statistic, right? And you also mentioned about, say, the gender disparity. There certainly are a lot of empirical studies which show that more gender diverse teams in corporations lead to, say, a 87% higher probability of better informed decision making. So there's certainly a strong utilitarian case to remove entry barriers to any given gender within the same. But I'd love to pivot towards the academic side of the discussion more now. So you have significant experience, say, commanding ships, and now you are working in a leadership capacity in the, say, academic setup of Abu Dhabi Maritime Academy. So how did this transition come about, and, say, was there a factor which shifted your focus or shifted your interest here?
So, and let's pick up on the topic about your 3% thing. So, 3% is not exactly the right term. I mean, they're still trying to fight whether it's 2.5 to 3%. But you're very right in that. It is, and we do have lots of debates in the industry whether the net zero 2050 goal is it going to be feasible, or it's because right now with all the technology that is actually available, and the kind of implementation that owners are doing, we're really still very far away from reaching the goal. So there's a lot of things which has to change in terms of the to reach net zero of 2050 goal. But we at least we are going towards that, and then as we come to the certain milestones, we might have to change our paradigm and see what exactly the shift is required from that point of view. Uh, I mean, from the point of view of gender diversity, I mean, what is wrong in having a more skilled workforce? I mean, why wouldn't you even think about that kind of thing? Why would you not have a more skilled workforce rather than limit somebody just because in the matter of gender? I mean, and it's completely foolish from that point of view. Right. So, on terms of academic nature, I mean, it just came by chance. I was very good in teaching, teaching my peers, my friends, and it came across, and it was picked up by one of my lecturer actually. You said, then Varun, you are pretty brilliant, when you talk about your thesis in your classroom and your projects. Why don't you think teaching as your career? And I said, no, I mean, teaching is not my cup of tea, because generally people have this kind of point of view. Teaching is only people for, especially for merchant navy. I mean, that is generally their requirements is there. There's a very famous proverb, I would say, uh, when people cannot do anything, they come and teach. That is a kind of opinion people have, and it's a very, how wrong could that be? I mean, it's like, if you were good enough, you would be a CEO. Just because you could not become a CEO, you have become a teacher. So that is the kind of general point of view that people generally have. Because sadly enough, the remuneration which normally the teachers get anywhere around the world is not equivalent to what the corporate world gives. And because of that, people either land up over there after retirement, or when they can't do their operational jobs, especially these kind of jobs as a merchant navy, as a captain or chief engineer. But people do not choose that, because in terms of money, the degradation is humongous. I mean, talk about what kind of salary that you are getting as a captain and what you're getting a teacher. You can't even imagine the kind of thing. So, and it's not only in our industry and vocational industry, but it's almost in every kind of, even people who would probably go to become a CEO after IIM, or do MIT and then become something and become a co-founder or entrepreneur. Nobody would prefer to join MIT itself as a professor from that point of view because of the kind of money thing. So either you have to have a very great passion to do that, or you can find any other job. That is a sad reality if you really ask me. Um, but I think so. I came here because I love interacting with people, and if I can show the pathway to the younger generations and the right way with my passion and my earning for learning, I think so that is the best thing that I can give to the next generation. So whatever experience that I've gathered over the years, and I love, I mean, I love exploring new philosophies, and whether it's Henry Fayol, it's Henry Ford, it's Baldwin, Meredith. So all of these kind of concepts I love to explore, and I was exploring during my when I was a student myself. Um, so I became a lecturer in 2009, sorry, in the UK, and to my disbelief, I mean, it was just by chance, for that panel. I mean, I said, okay, let me give it a try, just because my professor was saying that I would be a good teacher, and then people loved me. I in fact became the bosses of many other lecturers who were my teachers also. So you can imagine the kind of friend, and it was not because I was good at what I was doing, apart from the academic part, creating programs, curriculums, course books, and stuff like that. But I was very good at interacting with the students. I could understand their pain points. I could address them. So in a way, there's a very good saying in education world that the mediocre teacher tells, and a good teacher explains, the superior teachers demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. There is one of the adage, I think a proverb written by someone, William, I forgot the exact name of that. And I actually believe in that. So if I could inspire someone to take up a career, or I could even inspire someone to be better on their job, I mean, what best could it be than that, in that fashion? So it came by default, it wasn't a very planned move initially, but afterwards, when I joined in Abu Dhabi over here, that was a very planned move. So people came to me and they said that they wanted to do something in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE. They wanted to create kind of programs, and because of my expertise dealing with so many years in the education field, and I said, like, well, why not? I'm quite a big believer of pedagogy and andragogy, and how you can actually enhance learning and training and development and so on. So that is how it came across.
Oh, that's very fascinating to hear, Captain Varun. Generally, that explains the pivot, and at the same time, it certainly showcases your lifelong passion for academia and teaching in general, something though perhaps you discovered during your career rather than perhaps something you might have had a preconceived notion of before itself. So that's extremely interesting. One thing that I would like to pick up over here is that, say, based on your extensive experience and, of course, training young maritime professionals, right, to hone their skills to gain more knowledge, could you perhaps build a case for why investing in maritime education is, say, important? There's a strong utilitarian motive to it in terms of improving one's career trajectory, and at the same time, about any modern developments in maritime education.
Yeah, so I think so. In terms of continuous professional development, I think if a person cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn, the person is going to get outdated. Any job for that matters. So, and especially now more so, technology is with such a lot pace it's coming across. You maybe have to completely relook your profession, your job, even teaching, for that matters. The way the traditional teaching used to be there, if you can't adapt yourself to the new technologies, I don't think you can be a good teacher now anymore. There was also a saying, if a student has to go to a computer instead of a teacher, then I think so you are not required anymore from that point of view. So I think so as a teacher, it's very important that you need to embrace, adapt to the new technology. As you rightly said, that adaptability is a very important key factor, which is again highlighted by World Maritime University for that matters. So the teachers itself, the technologies, we have to embrace them. We have to utilize them to our fullest, because they're all there for your benefit and the teach and the students' benefit. So investing on continuous professional development, it goes without saying, as I told you, unless and you sort of you unlearn and relearn, you are going to get outdated. But using technologies, it's very important, in not only in maritime education, but almost in every kind of field. You, there are so many companies, so many technologies in distance learning, blended learning, which has actually broken the traditional methods. And in fact, they have actually, I mean, let's talk about MLA College itself. I mean, for the very fact they are a distance learning program, which enables them to actually go across the people who are actually sailing at the moment right now, right? I mean, you can imagine traditionally they would have to come to the classrooms, go for breaks, and sit for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year without getting any salaries, and they're all senior people. I mean, in terms of shipping industry, because our nature of the industries, we generally call it nursery seedbed, and then we call it nursery seedbed is because we get people from normal high school students, and then we eventually get them into the licensing program, diploma, advanced diploma, bachelor's program, and then that's how the licenses goes across. So even if the students have the bachelor's in nautical science, let's say example, or in shipping and maritime operations, if they have to do masters, let's say example, right? So they'll have to think about doing masters only when they have financially sustainable income to provide them for a leave or two, or they have to plan to do something very drastically. And the beauty of distance learning is, you don't have to do all these things. You can just be sailing, doing your normal job, what you were doing. Utilize the time that you're actually spending, watching movies or Netflix on board the vessels, or videotapes or cassettes, whatever you guys are doing back in the old times, and utilize that time to actually study and make it structured. So that is the beauty of that. And it has been in that industry for many years. It's not a new novel concept, so why not embrace it? Why don't you utilize that kind of concept from the point of view? So even for our academic program back in the UK, we had blended learning. So we had different programs. So even one college, for example, we would be able to give people who are O level, GCSE level, A levels. We'll have a different HND, foundation degree programs, and then we will have blended learning for senior seafarers. So they can do the studies while they're working. So that's a brilliant concept to have distance learning program. And congratulations to MLA that they've become actually pioneer, in self-paced learning, and having credible, validated degrees from University of Plymouth. So well done, you guys.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights on that, Captain Varun. Of course, MLA College started with the maxim of learn while you earn, because, as you rightly mentioned, we did not want seafarers to take a study break, think about the financial implications of the same, etc. So we wanted them to have the best of both worlds, of say academically upskilling themselves while carrying on in their professional trajectory as well. So that is why they are given course content in a format which allows them to readily go through the materials as they're actively sailing as well. And because of that, we do of course permit for offline access as well, so that their continuous learning is not disrupted owing to say their either their career or personal aspirations. So that is a very core motive of ours, and thank you for enunciating on that. But actually building onto that, considering that right now we have say a traditional educational ecosystem which does favor on campus learning, and say a digital format which has kicked in, especially since COVID, it has there has been an exponential increase in the same. How do you see a hybrid of the two coexisting, and what do you see this portends for say the educational ecosystem in the time to come?
And that's the future. If you really ask me, a traditional education is going to not be relevant in the future years. If you really ask me, there would be proponents for that, but it's almost like the work culture. If you talk about remote working and traditional working, you see how many companies have actually moved on to the remote working because of the benefits of the cost. People can actually remain at home because you don't require to sort of oversight the people and see what exactly they're doing it. So I think so. It is again adaptability. People have actually evolved to what their needs in nature. They've understood the requirements of families, travel times, and especially in cities where the travel time. I mean, you can imagine if you have to go to a work for about 2 hours just to sit there for 8 hours and come back home for 2 hours, 4 hours of your day you're just spending in traveling to your work. It doesn't make sense from any point of view. So that kind of culture, it is eventually going to happen even in education. So I think looking forward, maybe not in, let's say in 5 years, but in 10 years down the line, I don't think there would be any room for traditional classroom-based learning. It is all going to be hybrid, and the people who can pioneer and who can build their reputation to be a very great distance learning provider are going to prevail than the old traditional matter.
Well, thank you so much for that, Captain Varun. I see that today we've discussed so far your interest in the maritime industry, what drove you towards it, some of, say, your key challenges as well as key highlights of your career, your transition to, say, from the commanding side of the industry, to, say, commanding ships in the industry to the academic domain of the sector, what drove you towards that change, as well as, say, building a utilitarian case for how young maritime professionals can go forward in their journey, especially by investing in maritime education and being open to, say, modern learning formats like distance learning can be a huge step forward for them. So as I open up, the panel to more audience questions, I would just like to ask you one final question from my end, which is that what insights would you like to, give our audience based on our discussion today, which they can utilize in their own careers, particularly, say, in terms of embracing modern educational methods?
Um, okay, thanks a lot again, Arjun. I would think if you talk about in encapsulating it in a one sentence, I think so. You need to invest in oneself. Um, I'm 50 years of age. If I at this age I'm thinking of investing on myself in terms of education, because one thing which pays off is education. It is never going to get wasted. It could be completely different. I'm telling you, I did my law degree in way back in 18 years back. And law was completely different to merchant navy, and for that matter. I mean, talking about corporate law, torts, criminal law, corporate law. So it's completely different to what exactly the nature of that. And at that moment of time, I was thinking, should I take medical? Should I take law? And I always believe that irrespective of what you take, where you are going to learn, any learning is always going to be fruitful to you. It's going to pay you dividends eventually. So I think it's very important to understand that you need to invest in your own self, and education is the most important factor which can actually define you or separate you out from your competitors, if you say so, or from another person. Because when you go for a job, when you are there for promotion lineup, when you want to transition from ship to shore, irrespective of how good a leader you were, or how good a captain you were, how good a chief engineer you were, you will require certain skill set which is not going to be there in your academic curriculum of your license. And you need to understand that there would be four people more with an academic degree who are ready to take the same job. So if you really want to come down to that level, you have to equip yourself with, I won't say a couple of degrees, but you have to have that knowledge that people are confident, people are more comfortable in hiring you rather than the other person who's got 2 degrees more. Because again, you have to understand, people might think, okay, you might do 2 years of degree and you may retain only, let's say, 6 months of knowledge. But 6 months of knowledge is also a knowledge which is going to be beneficial not only for you but also your employer. So the employer is actually investing on you, thinking what is he going to get benefited from. So let's say, for example, if I'm a captain and I have by default I've got exposure to all those things by default, right? Because of my own interest, without any degrees, is I did my law, I did my other studies from that point of view and all. But if tomorrow, if an employer has to invest on a person, he would always prefer a captain with a degree in MBA, an MSc in sustainability, in maritime, something which is going to be relevant and it's going to benefit from me, because you learn so many things. You learn about sustainability, you learn about project management, you talk about management, talk about leadership. So many things is involved in this process, which is going to be beneficial not only for you to perform good in your job, but also for the employer. So think from that point of view, invest in yourself. That is the best gift you can give it to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Varun. I'm sure that's extremely insightful for our audience, especially as they look at how to, say, charter their trajectory to, build a career, and what sort of ways they can do to ensure that, they're maximizing their potential and that they're taking the best possible investments, in terms of their career trajectory. So thank you for sharing that. Just one question. One question which has just come in from Adam, which I believe has kind of been, our overarching ambit of discussion today.
Right.
That could you shed some light in general about the barriers faced by young maritime professionals who have just entered the industry today, considering, the developments that have taken place in the recent past?
Right. So the first impression, I'll tell you honestly, is people can go to jail, right? That is one of the sad part of the merchant navy. There have been a lot of cases very recently where the masters have been put behind bars, whether it was drug-related cases or whether it's pure collision annihilation. So this kind of cases, it's quite difficult for us as a maritime professionals to sort of portray and give explanation, because we also get dismayed, if you really ask me. That is one of the challenges that basically you have to overcome. We have to see from a different lens altogether. The unfortunate thing is, let's say for a captain, the captain doesn't have to be on the bridge for him to go to jail. Unfortunately, that is how it is. He could be in his cabin sleeping, and if the second officer has not kept the proper watch, and the ship lands up into a collision, the captain will go to the jail. On certain aspect, and that is a kind of thing which is not a very great thing to hear for a new generation or a new person who's entering into the sea carrier. Uh, the new entrant to the sea carrier also has so many different options now. At the moment, right now, you would say, why would I join a ship when I can be this? It's perfectly fine. I mean, if your interest lies in these professions, I would say you go there rather than you investing in your time, because this profession will take certain amount of time. I mean, I keep telling the people who want to come and join the ship, I said, like, you can't think of becoming a chief engineer or a captain in any 2 years as compared to aviation. I mean, aviation is quite a more better industry, because you can become a commander and become captain much more faster than you compare to a shipping industry. Seafaring takes about 10 good years from the time you join to become a captain, or chief engineer will take about 8 years. So you need to invest that much of time to become a chief engineer. So if you are ready to invest in that much of time of your life, of your career, then you go ahead. If you do not want to invest that much of time, and then look at better options. But you have to understand that you are trying to utilize your knowledge by working as a chief engineer or as an engineer or as an officer. And if you have some other degree which you are doing by distance learning, by hybrid blended way, then you're just enhancing that. I mean, you are utilizing your time while working, while you're earning, and gaining more degree, gaining more knowledge, which is going to be more beneficial tomorrow. If you tomorrow suddenly you say, okay, I have had enough, 5 years down the line I want to go somewhere else, the transition is going to be much more easier. So I think so people who are interested in shipping industry, be very mindful. It's a challenging industry, but it's a very rewarding industry, I would say honestly. I mean, the prospects of people, whether it's you're an engineer, whether you're an officer, it's so much more. I'm talking about CEO, sustainability, fleet operations, fleet managers, superintendents, surveyors, academic. I mean, the possibility is endless. So be mindful. Be very open to what the new technologies are coming into place. And I was always like tell them to be very social. And then now it's a social life. You can't afford to be doing your license, your studies independently yourself, and not knowing exactly what is happening on the world. Have a LinkedIn profile. Interact with people. Like us, we are more than happy to sort of mentor people. What your career should be, how you should go about that. There are a lot of like-minded people over there. So build up a very good social network around you, because network is your net worth eventually. So think about that also.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Varun. I think this is extremely illuminating, especially for, say, younger members of our audience who are keen on a maritime profession and would, say, love to gain the insights of a seasoned professional such as yourself. So, thank you so much for, investing us with your insights, with your time. We got to learn more about your journey. We got to learn about, say, your understanding of maritime trends, as well as, say, understanding about investing in maritime education from a distinguished academic himself. So, thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, more than welcome, Arjun. And as I said, thank you very much for MLA College. You guys are doing a brilliant job. Continue doing the same thing. It's more like you're doing a service to the industry. In terms of your distance learning programs for that. And I hope people who are observing and who are watching and in participating in the webinar does understand the kind of investment they require to do, and look forward to have more interaction with you, Arjun, and the team at MLA College. Thank you very much again, once again, for having me here.
Thank you, Captain Varun. And just before I close, I'll just talk a bit about our product offerings. That at MLA College, we offer bachelor's and master's programs in maritime sustainability and a host of other domains. As I've already mentioned previously, all our degrees are distance learning, as Captain Varun has also extensively talked about today, and they are awarded by the University of Plymouth. We have three intakes every year in January, September, and May. And our most recent intake is in May, for which applications are still open. So if anyone is keen to apply, there is still ample time to go ahead and reach out to us. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and I wish you a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Arjun. Bye.
Happy to do this.